Hi everyone, my name is Glenda with SureFit Designs, whimsically referred to as Glenda the Good Stitch. In the previous video, we started talking about zipper application, and there I showed you how to insert the invisible zipper. Today we're going to talk about the regular zipper. And the regular zipper, you can actually sew it in one of two different ways. One is a lapped application and the other is a centered application. Here we'll talk about the lapped process, and in the next video I'll show you how to apply it as a centered application. In order to see the lapped application, let's take a look at the pants that are on this mannequin. And lapped zippers are normally put in the side of a pair of pants or a skirt. And of course this is the front, and you can see that the lap is going towards the back. There's the lap and there's the back of the garment. And I know that this is in black, so it's a little bit difficult to see that. So here I have an actual sample of a lapped zipper application, whereas this would be the front of your skirt or pants. There's the lap aiming towards the back, and that would be the back of the garment. And you can see that I've inserted a really long zipper. I was fabric shopping one day and the store had these on sale for 50 cents each, and so I bought about a half a dozen of them. And it's so easy to use a long zipper like this that is way too long for the application, and then to actually zip it down and then put your waistband application on, and then that waistband stabilizes it so the zipper can't go flying off. And I'm actually going to show you that when I do the centered application. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the lapped zippered process and technique. And here are my two samples. And because the right side and the wrong side look identical, I've told you this before in a previous video, please just use a piece of tailor's chalk or marking pencil and mark wrong side, and then you'll know when you're working with the right side of the fabric. To make any seam, you're going to place the right sides together. And when you are inserting a zipper, a traditional style of zipper like this, you are going to be basting the section of the seam where the zipper is going to be inserted. So I'm just putting some pins in place here, and then the remainder of the seam is going to get sewn permanently. So we'll just call this the top, and now what we want to do is take this zipper and we're going to measure down. And actually what we want to do here is we want to measure down exactly 5/8 of an inch, because you are going to be sewing on, very likely, a waistband on top of this. So I have my seam gauge set at 5/8 right there, and I put that zipper just pin just a little bit too low. So there's my 5/8, there's where the pin is, and now where the zipper stop is, you want to be setting that right below that pin, so that when you do go to sew the waistband on top of this, that you're going to give yourself enough little sewing room there. So now I'm just going to put a pin in to mark that, or to hold it, shall I say. And now I'm going to take this zipper, and I have to mark where the stop is, the bottom of the zipper, because I am ultimately going to be sewing across and then up the lapped side. So you can either stop right above where that metal stop is, right here, or you can stop below and stitch to just below it. I have a tendency to stitch just right below it, so I'm going to get my pin in here like this, and that's right underneath where that zipper stop is. Now I'm just going to take that zipper away for the time being. So this pin is, and I'm going to put another pin going this way, that double pin now, and I can remove that one as well, is where I'm going to regular stitch up to that pin, and then I'm going to baste the rest of this seam closed. So let's take this to the sewing machine and start the process of preparing the seam to accept the zipper. I have my machine right now on regular stitch length, and I'm going to insert the needle And you want to make sure that the cut edge of the fabric is right on the 5/8 inch marking. In a previous lesson, I showed you in how to seam, and there I put a piece of blue masking tape down, and you can do that as a beginner if you want to, just to make sure you're right on the 5/8 inch marking. The other thing that you'll notice that I've already done is I have seam finished the edge of the seam allowance, and I did that prior to sewing in the zipper, and that's because it's very difficult to get into those seam allowance edges up at the top portion where your zipper is going to sit after you've put the zipper in. So on the seam where you're going to be inserting a zipper, just make sure that you've seam finished it ahead of time. And of course, as a regular seam, you would backstitch and then continue sewing. And when I get up to my pins, of course, I do remove the pins. So this is just regular stitch length. And I'm going to put my needle in the down position, which I just did, and I'm going to stop right where that double set of pins are, and I'm going to remove them, because from there on I need to baste. But before I do, I'm going to stabilize that little stopping point with 3 stitches in the back. I stitched in reverse, and now I'm going to come forward 3 stitches. Now, at this point, you want to change your stitch length from regular, which is 2.5 millimeters, up to the longest it will go. My machine will go up to 6 millimeters length of stitch length, and some machines only go up to 5 millimeters long. And now you're basting this seam. And this top portion, of course, is where the zipper is going to go. And I'm going to baste all the way up to the top, raise the presser foot, and just remove this from the machine. So now I need to take this and press this open. And so I'm just opening up the seam allowance, and then I'm going to press the seam allowance open. And of course you can press this on top of your seam roll, because this is perfectly flat here. I don't exactly need to have a seam roll, but you do want to make a really, really sharp press. And if I haven't said this before, I should mention the difference between pressing and ironing. Ironing is when you iron something big and flat, and you go back and forth and back and forth. Pressing is an up and down motion like this, which is typically what we use for seams, is a pressing action. And you can see that that pressing and this steam has actually started removing my W's, but I've already set this up so that I know that that's the wrong side. All right, so my seam is perfectly pressed open. Now I'm going to take this, and I'm actually going to remove my basting. And I know you might find this a little strange to do it this way, but you'll see why as we go along. I'm just going to remove the thread like this. There are lots and lots of ways to sew in an applied zipper, or I didn't mean that, I meant a lap zipper. And this is just one that I find particularly easy to do. And so I'm just pulling my basting thread out like that.
Turn the iron when you can.
And let me clip that thread away. Okay, so now I have this pressed open, but the basting has been removed. Now what I need to do is I need to place the fabric, place the garment as if I'm viewing the right side. And of course that is because my seam allowance is on the inside. And now I'm going to set the zipper in, and the right side of the zipper is going to be face up, and I'm going to set the zipper in like this. And you know, there's one other thing I want to do, and this just helps you get ready for the last step, is I'm going to set my seam gauge at 3/8 of an inch, and you can either mark this with pens, or you can mark it with this water-soluble marking pencil, which I'm using right here. What I'm doing by marking this 3/8 right here is I'm giving myself a guideline for the final stitching of that lap. And I'm just taking this Magic removable tape. This is Scotch Brands tape, and I'm going to put a line of tape right down where I made that 3/8 inch mark. And this can be done at the end too, but I find it just a little bit easier to do it at that stage. All right, so that's my final line of stitching. Okay, now back to the zipper. I'm going to take my zipper, and the stop is going to be just visible because I gave myself enough room for that. And when I lay this on top like this, there we go. And now I've got my 5/8 inch up here as well. And if you want to, you can measure that again. Now, I am going to refold this seam allowance to create an 1/8 inch wide tuck. So on the crease that you've just made, you can finger fold this in place. You don't want to go wider than 1/8 of an inch, but you're taking your seam allowance and you're rolling it out towards, how shall I say this, towards the front of the garment, and you're rolling it out about 1/8 of an inch. Now I'm going to take that and place it right beside the zipper teeth or the zipper coil, and I'm pinning it to hold it in place, and I'm pinning at right angles. So you can see I'm just rolling out that crease approximately 1/8 of an inch towards the zipper teeth or coil. So it's got to go right along the side of the zipper until we come up to that zipper stop. There we go. Now it's been folded out 1/8 of an inch and pinned all the way along the edge of the zipper teeth like this. Now we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew a 1/16 of an inch in between the fold and where the original crease line was. In order to do this, we remove the regular foot from the sewing machine and you place your zipper foot on. Every machine has a little bit different style of zipper foot. This is the one that comes with mine. And you want to place it so that your needle is going down the left-hand side of that zipper foot. And because I want to stitch right in between the original crease that I made and the fold that I just manipulated with my fingers, I am going to take the needle position and I'm going to move it over just slightly. I think you can see how I'm moving my needle over like that so that I can get right in there. The other thing that you want to do is take your stitch length back to regular stitch length. So that's 2.5 millimeters. And I'm going to unzip that zipper. And make sure your threads are towards the back of your machine. And position that needle in between your original crease of the 5/8 inch line and that little extended fold that you just made. And I would backstitch here to secure that. And I'm also going to put my needle in the down position. I sew with it a lot like that because it just helps to prevent things from shifting when you start taking pins out. So I'm sewing at approximately a 1/16 of an inch away from that new fold that I've got on the edge of the fabric there. And at this point, I don't want to leave the head of the zipper there. So again, with the needle in the down position, I'm going to raise the presser foot, move that head up so that it's out of my way now, and now I can continue stitching. And I'm coming down to the bottom of the zipper, and I'm going to backstitch about 2 stitches and finish it off like that. Of course, I'm sewing in a contrasting color so that you can see this. I'll clip the top thread and the bottom thread, and that's what it looks like. Now you can pull that thread to the inside and tie it off or put a little bit of seam sealant on there. There it goes. And so that's been removed, and that's just a little bit of fuzz that can be clipped off afterward. Okay, now I've got my marking where I'm going to sew for the lap. So I'm going to take that folded edge of the seam allowance and I'm going to place it just over top of that line of stitching that I just made, just like this. And that little bit, of course, won't show in yours because you're going to be using matching thread to your fabric. And now you start pinning this in place. Now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to stitch across the bottom and up the other side, which is going to form the lap. And I'm just going to feel with my finger and thumb where the bottom of that zipper stop is. It's right there. And I'm going to put a pin right here because I know that's where I need to start. Now I'm going to start stitching at the bottom, across, and then up. So I'm going to turn the fabric like this. That's where my starting point is. It's just below that zipper stop. Bring it over to the machine. And I just want to make sure I'm in the correct orientation here. So yes, the zipper is on, or the needle is on the left-hand side. As I come up to my marked tape area, I'm going to pivot and go up the other side. So everything in terms of the way the needle and the zipper foot is set is correct. Now, you basically want to start at that seam allowance, but so that things don't kind of get all bunched up underneath there, what is often a good idea is to start forward of that seam allowance, put your machine in reverse, and again you're on regular stitch length. We'll stitch back to the seam allowance like that, take it out of reverse, and then begin stitching forward. Come up to the edge where you've got it marked with your tape, right there, with the needle in the down position, raise the presser foot, pivot the fabric around the needle, and now begin sewing up the other side. And use your tape as a guide for stitching. And of course, remove your pins as you stitch. Now we're coming up to the head of the zipper, and you obviously can't sew over top of that. So you'll raise your presser foot up, remove this pin, open your zipper up, and unzip it like this. So now everything is nice and flat. All right, I think we're done. This, of course, can get pulled to the reverse side and tied off. We'll remove the tape. I've got little bits of tape here that are left, but that's easy enough to pull off. This magic tape makes a great guide for stitching, and then you can remove it, just as I'm doing here. All right, and now when you zip this up, there you've got a beautifully prepared lapped zipper. In the next video, we will be talking about the center applied zipper. If you've enjoyed this video, and I certainly hope that you have, I invite you to join the SureFit Designs community, and you can do that in 3 easy steps. Number 1, just go on over to surefitdesigns.com and subscribe to the newsletter, and when you do, you're going to receive free Getting Started gifts. Number 2, you're likely in YouTube watching this right now. Please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video. And there's buttons below the video to do both of those things. And also, we now have a Facebook user group. And all you need to do is go to facebook.com/SureFitDesigns. On the left-hand side where all the links are shown, it says Groups and Sure-Fit Designs. Go ahead and ask to join and we will approve you right away. We have people from all over the world interacting with one another, sharing the garments they've made with Sure-Fit Designs and asking questions. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.